And welcome to the Print Your Games podcast, the podcast for the gamers who make our own toys. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres.
Kristen. This has been an extremely busy but productive week for me. How's it been for you?
Oh, I would say it's been a learning curve week. We'll use that word.
Learning curve.
Or phrase.
I've been seeing some pictures. Your learning curve doesn't involve filament and or destruction, does it?
It does. It does. It involves handfuls of sad filament, but it also involves some victory. So I'm happy about the victories.
Yes.
Super excited that I think got something to really look like it already belonged on my table, which for a first print, and it was my first print on the new printer. I got my replacement printer. And
ooh. Now, what printer is this, by the way? What do you recommend?
I am using now an Anycubic because I did want to give them another chance. I've got an Anycubic i3 Mega X.
Okay.
It's big, which is cool.
Yes. It's much bigger than my little thing.
That was the point, but then I found out, and this is something maybe some listeners might not know, that when you put more stuff on an FDM printer, you put more time on an FDM printer. It is not a resin printer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the little guy, the first baby's first FDM piece, and
it looks good.
Yeah, thank you. I was very happy, especially considering it's, just pretty much not even a full afternoon job.
So, describe what this is, because we're primarily an audio audience here.
Yeah, no problem. So this is kind of a big pedestal piece. It is going beneath a 4-portal kind of like I don't want to say a gazebo. It's almost just like a little structure. It could be a temple or shrine, maybe. It's very generic looking, kind of, I would say, with a maybe dwarven aesthetic. But it's going to be very multi-purpose, I think. And it has, like I said, the modular portal top, and it has this kind of big dais, kind of 4 different little staircases leaning onto it. It is not explicitly gridded. It's from Forbidden Prints, before I get too far ahead of myself, by the way.
Right.
And it's very economical too. It's a little bundle. You get the little temple shrine topper and then the base platform piece it's very affordable. And go ahead, sorry.
It's a cool raised dais with multiple steps in the center, and there's supposed to be a piece that goes on top of this, right?
Right. That matches into the grooves perfectly. But again, I love modular stuff. That's one of the reasons why I painted it to match my Dungeons and Lasers, because it's all modular. You can kind of like, switch it in and change it up very easily. So this bottom piece though kind of has like the 4 stairways, and there's like central I guess boundaries on each staircase that I painted metallic to kind of match the metallic elements in my Hall of Heroes, and do the same thing on the topper piece. The topper piece though was also baby's first failed print.
Oh no. What failed?
If you're listening to this, I'm holding about maybe, I don't know, what, 3-4 inches per
yeah, it's probably about that
column. And it got to this point, and this is something, my learning curve, right? I had my little raft on my first piece, the dais piece that looks good and is successful, had a raft on it. And I didn't really think much about it. I opened up the other one. I was in kind of a hurry. I was running a game last night, and I wanted to put it on there, and I put it on there, and it did not have a raft. It just had a little boundary. It looked like it was printing a raft when I set up the print, but it just did a little cute little border.
Skirt.
Kind of, yeah, the skirt. So that's what, there's a whole another language of FDM printing terminology, by the way, that I'm learning. So that's fun. But it did that. And then didn't do the fill in. And for people who are listening, a raft basically is like an expanded surface area that adheres your FDM print to your build plate. And I have a heated build plate, which is really cool because when it cools down after you turn it off, or when you're done with the print, it contracts and the thing pops off very easily. It's really neat.
Right.
But the problem with that is it being a heated build plate and with no raft, and so it's kind of more mobile shifting material. When it finally got high enough that the weight made it awkward, it dropped.
No. Yeah.
And when it dropped, it pulled down the other tower across from it, and then the whole thing went to hell.
Yeah, it's spaghetti is what we call it when that happens. And it looked like the pictures you showed me, you were holding like a mound of filament spaghetti.
Yeah, I eventually killed the print, but I had not known it had failed for a good hour or two, and there was just a pile of stuff. Cool thing is though, the elements are here, and I'll be able to totally repurpose this into something else, and maybe we'll show that off at a different date.
Right. But
But
the good thing about a failed FDM print is you just clear the bed and go again.
Oh yeah, and so what I did on this one is I went down and took 2 minutes and added a raft, and it is now up to the same point. So I'm hoping when we're done here that I'm going to go upstairs and not see a pile of spaghetti, but rather see a complete arch where the two lovely pieces, the modular pieces again, will like slide down around the pedestal things, and it kind of like makes like a big pointed kind of shrine or gazebo-y looking thing. I don't know.
Nice.
It's neat looking. You know, I like arches and portals,
So a raft, it actually does a couple of things for you, and I always print with a raft. And I kind of like it's the easiest solution for FDM failure, and it gives me my best bangs for the bucks. And you're right, you described it right. It's printing like a little thin area around the perimeter of the printer, just fills that completely in with like a big flat splash, like an old video game shadow texture just around everything. You've stroked it in Photoshop sense, and it's one layer thick, and it does two things. First, it increases the surface area of the first layer so that it has nice and good adhesion, and very importantly, because of thermal change, it keeps the print from shrinking and popping off due to thermal changes, which the heated bed is supposed to do that. But if you have anything such as like a gust of wind or a draft or just any variable in temperature in your room, it can cause exactly what happened. And rafts are a good solution for that. They waste a little bit of extra plastic, but not
the handful of spaghetti that I ended up with. Yeah.
And because they're a single layer, and because the way that filament prints the raft, in most cases they'll just peel off if you just pull it off. The printer just comes right off. We have Krosmodsi in chat saying they prefer brims more than rafts, without a doubt. I'm still new enough in the FDM world that I don't know the difference, but I'll definitely look into that. And
I'm going to gather that that's Crazy Mad Scientist really abbreviated, but maybe I'm guessing incorrectly.
You are more intuitive in the usernames than I am.
Yeah, I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's Krasma DC, the ancient sorceress. I don't know.
So it sounds like, but partial success and hopefully future success. This is a lot better than completely broken FDM printer, which is where we were last time we chatted about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to do this. I had to just get over a fear, because once I have a failure, oftentimes I get this like, I'm just too dumb to do this thing, and I'm not gonna learn all this other stuff, and it's like this moment that I just have to grit and jump over. Kind of like when I was doing a Kickstarter, I did the same thing. I just had to learn a whole bunch of really uncomfortable things like international shipping and things like that. And this is the same thing where I just I had the fails at that first break. I noticed finally when we were packing it up that it had part of its drive wires for the extruder, which is the piece that shoves everything up in there. If you're not familiar with it, the extruder wasn't fully connecting, and I think it wasn't getting enough power to the engine, and so it burned its engine out, is my guess.
Oh no.
But don't know. It was obviously a broken part there too. So whatever it was a bad unit. And this new one seems to be purring like a kitten so far. I've already got lots of advice on how I will eventually have to repair and upgrade it. But for the meanwhile, I have an Anycubic out of box that is working just fine. So hopefully I've exercised my demons regarding that brand.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear some success. I have not got to print hardly anything the last couple of weeks, mainly because I've been busy launching a new podcast, because I tend to do that rather than normal things like buying new clothes in the fall. So tomorrow is going to be the first episode of the Upshift podcast I'm doing with Ryan Costello about Essence 20, and it's going to be a good excuse for me to nerd out about Transformers and Power Rangers and G.I. Joe and all sorts of rated stuff. I'm sitting like we've already had like some conversations on No Direction about that, and like I'm sitting there ranting about like the value of the Gridman project and Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, and how it's crazy that the two of them got together 20 years later and made an anime. And like all of this ties into the Super Sentai stuff I love so much, and Power Rangers RPG, and this ties into all that. So we're about to like nerd out on an epic scale, but the as somebody who has launched a few dozen successful podcasts at this point, a lot goes into launching a podcast, and it has absolutely been exhausting. New logos, getting the site ready, making sure that like the outlines are ready, and it's just like a massive amount of work. Now thankfully that's going to be part of KD Network, so KD Network has all the infrastructure standing there, so it's not like launching this show. Launching Print Your Games as its own independent podcast, that was maybe the most amount of work I've done in years on a single project. So
But you get to be the mad Captain Ahab who guides the ship all alone. And
yeah,
you know,
but doesn't
I'm
this
just the
end with
white
us being
whale.
killed by a whale?
Well, eventually, yeah, but you get a good run of chasing it around the world first, and you know, being crazy.
Right. Yeah, but that does not mean that a man cannot dream of the 3D prints he wants to do. And
Well, you still
I
have
have
a lot you're painting too, so I don't
Oh
imagine.
yeah, I mean I've been painting like I've shown this before. Like I have like a few dozen more of these orcs I still need to paint for my sister. And
So is this your same sister who gets the Wood Elf army too?
Yeah, same one.
Are you painting that for her too?
No, yes.
All right. No wonder why you're lagging here. If you've
Yeah.
got an orc army and a Wood Elf army, and an amazing soon-to-be expansion to that Wood Elf army shortly.
Yeah, which we'll be talking about during the shows for sure. But
For
yeah,
sure.
Titan Forge's new Wood Elves next month look great. And then there's this. I was testing out like new primers on some of these orcs. So this is I went to the dark side and I bought me some Chaos Black to like test to see is the actual miniature primer any better than my Rust-Oleum. And you know what? I've got some news to report on that front.
Yeah.
In some ways, this is a very nice finish on a set of prime black models. It's like, oh, that is a nice crisp finish, and you know, I didn't have to be quite as careful to make sure that I didn't oversaturate the model, and you know, it did a good job. And there was a lot of kick in that spray can, and it got like, you know, a lot more than I'm used to from a Rust-Oleum can, and it really powdered that paint and pigment right on out there. And the end results are better than some that I've managed to do with black Rust-Oleum. But you know what wasn't such a great result? When that can spurted black paint all over my favorite new shirt and went crazy, and then the lid exploded. I'm sure that this isn't a fair judgment to cast upon all Citadel spray paints. But so far, I'm liking my Rust-Oleum. And honestly, I've been like, you know, I need to get better quality for my paints if I'm going to be, you know, upping my painting game. And I think I actually already have the solution, the ultimate solution for this sitting here.
Your airbrush.
My airbrush, and just get some Stynel res and do like all the other professional painters do, and just like I've already got that sitting here. I've got the primer. Why don't I just do that? And
I can't. I mean, okay, straight up though, like, and again, I'm going to sound like the army painter shill, but it's cheaper and I get better results out of it. Like I did Corax white because I got some and I was like, I'm going to do it straight up and it's going to be great. And it's so shiny, and weirdly it caused even some of their own paints to bubble if they were too thinned. So like I've had very mixed results with Citadel primers specifically. I love most of their colors, and you know, until Army Painter's Speed Paint box set comes out and changes my life forever, I will continue to use my Games Workshop stuff just fine. And then the contrast stuff is great, especially learning how to work with it through airbrushes and stuff for tinting is crazy cool. But you know, I've also got really great results just from rattle cans with Army Painter and a couple fun gradient primes. So
yeah. So overall, for me, $4 Rust-Oleum, it's probably going to stick with that. and when I need to be a little bit more careful or I care a little bit more, I'm gonna grab my Stano Res or my Vallejo black spray primer and use that. So you really swear by the army painter stuff, huh?
I do. Again, this is table ready. This is not. I'm not a competitive painter. I
Mm-hmm.
have submitted maybe to one just on a lark, and didn't even get an honorable mention. So we're good. But yeah, like terrain wise, craft paint is great for me. But figs, I still want to do better than that. And when I'm using minis, I'll do usually Arnie painter, and then mix it up with how I'm painting it. But yeah, I don't know, just a little smoother. I've had some good results with Vallejo stuff. Ironically, their historical line is
Oh.
also pretty smooth. And I don't know why that was, but I ended up needing brown because I did those treants. I don't know if you remember them. And I actually did brown undercoat, zenithal white. So I think it was Vallejo brown with Army Painter white over it. And really, really loved the results of that. So, but yeah, they're both cheaper too than the GW stuff.
So I keep hearing people love the army painter stuff and use it, and it has its fans. Every time I've touched it, it has destroyed a model. Like it has absolutely killed my chocobos, and I know that it's something I'm doing. Like shake it forever because you shake this stuff forever, and then spray it onto my models, and all my models get this like crackle paint texture. It's like from the very first spurt too. It's like, no, I did not want a chalky finish to my chocobos.
So I have had one army painter thing that had a really bad lid and just like squirted out like almost like a stream.
Ooh.
But that's like 1 in maybe 20. I find though that when I paint with them, it's really short bursts, just kind of, and similar to how I would airbrush it, I guess.
Right. Like I'm trying to follow like the guides where you say you hold it the X number of inches away, you spray away from the model, do a very quick pass across the model, then release the spray. And sometimes that works out for me, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I would notice a lot of the similar things you'd see with any color, like their yellow is definitely struggles to do a full coat in one spray. Like,
right.
And I'm not just talking directionally. I'm just talking like its pigment is so translucent that like you almost have to have a white undercoat under it, even on the prime. Like
there's a reason if you go to like a painting service website and you're like, hey, paint my minis for me, they go, there's an extra charge if you said you paint this yellow.
right. Well, you're basically guaranteeing 1 to 2 extra coats minimum, right?
But Adam Savage just showed off a tool that I'm sorely tempted to get. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I will probably Amazon order it, which is a spray paint holder that you put into a power drill and will shake the crap out of that can for you.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So it was like, I looked it up. It's like not even $20 on Amazon. So I'm definitely going to grab one of those. Like I should probably also buy my own power drill, because right now I'm just borrowing my dad's on a frequent basis. And to the extent that he's getting annoyed by how often the power drill is over in my miniature painting room.
Right.
And
I've noticed duplicate tools start showing up if there's something of James's I'm borrowing too often out. Suddenly I have my own tool set for, tweezers, actually. And it must have been talked about because a couple friends also got me more cool tweezers. So I have like really, I am drowning now in awesome tweezers, which I appreciate very much. But I have clearly made it known that I needed them probably by taking James's too often.
So. Oh, no. And all of this is a lead up to a very big project that I've been planning for a while, but dreading. And is that I want to have an undead army, because I need me to have lots of undead miniatures. An undead army is a good bad guy faction to have in just about any miniature game, and of course in my Pathfinder games where I'm wanting to run like this big like vampire version of the Magnificent Seven or Seven Samurai, I'm going to need lots of undead. And part of that means I'm going to need me my zombie horde. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean horde. I want a big old giant bunch of like 48 zombies to have ready and to put on the table for various reasons.
That's really cool, and of course, I encourage you to print them. But I would say if you're needing an army faster, I bet you can find a whole bunch of buyer's remorse zombie side sets that you could pick up for nothing on eBay.
Oh, that is a good point. Black Plague sets would like
Well, because so many people get super into that, and then they
Mhm.
never play it. And then like there's these half painted massive zombie side box sets that you can go pick it for nothing.
And there's this one set that Mantic Games makes that is so popular, even among Warhammer players, called the Zombie Horde. It's literally a box of 40 zombies that is
Mhm.
$35. So it's like not even $1 a zombie. And it's so popular that when the original Total War Warhammer video game trailer went out and they were showing like shots of the physical game, the shot of the table was using Mantic's zombies instead of GWs. It got that popular.
That's funny.
So that is it's an option I've considered, but I kind of want some variants to my zombies. And as much as that is a popular set, not my cup of tea for my zombies. They look a little ghoulish to me, and
Sure.
and as a Pathfinder player or in a D&D player, I need to make sure that my ghouls are clearly delineated from my zombies. They're
I
clearly
do really like the Pathfinder aesthetic for the ghouls. They do have kind of a more distinct, and those tongues, you know.
Right. Which is I'm super proud of my ghouls. Like we use them in the show's logo.
Yeah.
With like the purple and like the purple
with
skin, and it looks great.
Crazy tongues and jumping around, looking all animate. Love it.
Right. So I need to find a good set of zombies. And a set of zombies that I really like is Highland Miniatures did a set of zombies where it's like 11 different unique sculpts in the set of zombies. And it's like a mix between like soldiers that have been zombified, still dragging their weapons, and just like and then
Is
just
there a
like
zombie in the
citizens.
stocks there? Looks like there's
Yeah, one of them's
zombies.
just like still stuck in the stocks and just dragging that along with them. And they got some that are just like gravestones and zombies pulling themselves up. And the leader for that regiment is like the flag bearer is just a zombie coming out of the ground with a flag, just impaling them into the ground.
Nice.
The musician is like a town crier that's just still got the bell like hanging off one hand as it shuffles forward. And the sergeant is like an executioner zombie with like a part of a zombie hanging off his back from back when he was doing executioner work. So it's like a cool set.
That is a cool set.
Yeah. So
Stocks got me a little bit. I've been playing Ruined King, that video game. It's based in League of Legends world, but they execute people in the stocks by having their stocks down at low tide.
Oh
and
no,
when the high tide comes
so
in,
horrible.
It drowns them when they're stuck in the stocks. And so now I see the stocks, and I'm like, that just gives me a whole new like horror factor when I see the stocks. So you could print them up as drowned stock zombies if you wanted to call in that energy. Anyway.
And I don't want no. That's so you're reaching my point. It's like I want some zombies, but I kind of get creeped out when I'm painting too much gore on a model. Because when you're painting a model, you got to get kind of intimate with it. I get my magnifying goggles, and I'm spending like, even when I'm speed painting something, it's like 10 or 15 minutes of me just staring at this dude's open gut wound and just lovingly painting the intestines. And like
I'm clearly broken because like as I've been doing all my like Slaanesh and Lust Daemon army stuff for the chaos thing I'm working on, I keep seeing Nurgle stuff, and I'm just like, that is so vile and disgusting, and I want to stick my brush into those entrails and make them shiny and wet, and like maybe I'm just broken.
Oh man, and I've only got so much of like Mephiston blood left in my from ancient days of it's just like a red wash paint that just has a gloss texture, and I love it, and I wish I knew what the modern version of this was because it is the perfect blood paint. And it's like from when I used to paint 10 years ago, and I still have that one bottle left, and when it runs out I'm going to be a sad panda.
I don't know if you like slop on is it Flesh Terrors Red? One of the contrast paints, when it gets kind of glossy and thick, can kind of look pretty good.
I use Flesh Terrors Red on my last Vampire Knights that I painted up. It like really great for their armor.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, for tinting it. Did you airbrush it?
Oh no, this was the set before that when it was just like their red leathers and capes.
Oh, okay,
So I
gotcha,
haven't
gotcha.
gotten those. Are still sitting in the baggie right now. Like I've still have my baggie full of knights that after I get done painting these orcs, I'll get to paint.
I hope there's some sort of fair trade going from this. Does sister get you resin at least? What does she do?
No. I just as long as I have somebody to play with, this is fine.
Cost of doing business, I see.
Right. Oh, and speaking of other hobby purchases that I kind of regret, I bought the Citadel paint stick. Talk for a second.
No, talk for a second. Speaking of things I bought Gundam Markers. And I'm actually like super into that. Like just the weird detailing you can do, and like just like I got a red one, so I can do little blood spatters, or going in to touch up an eye if I mess it up. Sometimes a little easier with a white Gundam marker. Though I did not realize if you push on them too hard, those suckers just gush.
Yep.
So I was like, I did when we were talking about the army painters ruining something. I pushed my Gundam marker in a little too hard, and like just boom, like a bucket of white paint on the lady's face on the mini. I was just like,
so depending on the Gundam marker, they're actually made to pump and prime by pushing the tip in and out. And if when you put it in, it's telling it flood.
Right. Now, are you supposed to have it upside down when you do that, though? Like, are you pushing...
Like you put it over to something you don't want to paint and just pump it a few times to wet it.
So that's what I was doing, just kind of like pushing against the cardboard in my priming.
Okay.
My sophisticated priming blind.
Oh, no.
Anyway. Yeah, so then that happened because I was like, okay, I think I have some on there, and I went to do her face. I'm like, I don't have enough. And I kind of pushed a little harder. I was like...
Ouch.
Yeah, I will not say the word that comes to mind on a recording mic. Anyway.
So the thing that I kind of regret buying, and I'm still messing around with whether or not I like this thing or not, but is this.
What is that?
This is the Citadel rubber band paint priming stick. And Ninjon, like ironically, I bought this, and then a few days later, Ninjon does a video called like the worst hobby products you can buy, and the star of the show is this very stick. Where you just take a model. I don't have a model handy that I can put in this, but you take a model and you put it's inside these rubber bands, and it holds it by the base by the rubber band, so you can go outside and prime with it like a stick. I'm like, oh, then I won't have to mess around with blue tack, and I have like a magnet stick I use, but every so often, like it doesn't have quite the grip I want, so every so often that just drops a model onto the asphalt.
Okay, you ran and grabbed a visual aid. I'm going to run and grab a visual aid.
Wonderful. And so like for the audience, like it is a long stick with rubber bands. I'm sure you've seen this thing, and it has some downsides. Like it holds the models great. I primed a whole bunch of elves with this, and it does get the job done. But I do feel kind of silly paying $20 for a big old long stick with rubber bands. Also, we have Crazy Mad Scientist saying coat d'arms. Used to manufacture the old Games Workshop paint, and you can probably find comparable paint from their range. I have heard about Coat d'Arms before. I definitely will check it out and see if they have this. I do know that supposedly they are still a great source for the legendary chestnut ink that cannot be purchased much anywhere anymore. So I'll have to check that out.
This is a piece of FDM foam.
Uh-huh.
With double-sided tack from the dollar store.
Uh-huh.
This was my priming stick, and it worked amazingly.
So your dollar store freebie foam thing is better than my $20 rubber band stick.
I mean, empirical data says probably.
So I do have my actual primer sticks that I did DIY that I actually have gone back to using since then, is the one that I have these orcs on. Yep. And it is just a $1 ruler, wooden ruler, that I have shaved the end of a dowel into and super glued into it so that I can hold it by a stick. And I'm using the 3M mounting tape across it to hold the models in place, and that works. It is the equivalent to your stick.
Yes, my dollar store dot tape is, I believe, what they called it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So that's.
But it worked. It worked, in my sophisticated airbrushing blind.
Oh no.
Oh, sad.
So moving on to the topic at hand, then is the what we want to talk about is how to keep your resin 3D printer from exploding, which is something it can't usually do, but they can self-destruct, and if you're not
and you can
careful,
destroy them.
you can absolutely destroy them if you are not careful.
Yep.
So you've got to, this is especially if you've got a resin printer for Christmas or the holidays, or you're just curious as to why it's not printing like it used to, or important things you need to do to keep from shoving your brand new model straight through the LCD screen of your expensive resin printer. There are things you need to do to take care of these on a regular basis. All in all, resin 3D printers are actually pretty durable devices that are easy to set up and pretty easy to use as long as you follow the safety instructions and just follow the basic instructions. You level the bed, you get the vat filled up, and every so often you have to change an FEP like we talked about before. But there is still a little bit of maintenance that you're going to need to do on these printers to keep them printing their very, very best. And we've hinted at the first one, but one of the most important things to do to keep your printers at their very best is, Kristen,
use a screen protector.
Use a screen protector.
Yes.
We've talked about it before, but you can buy just like the same little screen protectors they make for laptops and stuff. You want the filmy ones, not the glass ones, because the glass ones are too thick. You want preferably like the PTFE ones that so they're non-slick and won't interfere with your printing stuff. That's what I use. But what you can use instead is just a spare FEP sheet that you cut to size and you tape down with Captain tape, which is not a rank of tape. This is heat resistant metallic tape that are used in electronics, because the UV light and the heat of the machine and just the heat of the chemical reaction to cure the resin, your standard tapes won't last very long. But if you use some heat resistant Captain tape, you can take that on a spare FEP sheet and get the same results as a screen protector. And that's if you can't get an easy one, do that. This is so that because periodically FEPs will fail. And when they fail, sometimes they get holes in them. And when they get holes in them,
oh yes,
the resin leaks all over your brand new printer screen.
And if you don't
getting
catch
that off
it
is
cures
hard
onto the surface of your
and then
screen.
you destroy your LCD screen. But
brand new expensive LCD screen.
Yeah,
Still processing the trauma, people. Anyway,
right. So yeah, screen protector. That one was a gimme. If you've listened to the show, you knew that one was a gimme. Second thing you need to do is regularly check your FEP and replace it. That's not new, but FEPs
but there's something I missed about doing that.
Oh, what is that?
I will admit that last week, to my horror, as we were talking, you mentioned lubricating your FEP.
And this is a controversial topic.
I had not done it, and almost everything about the failures, because I told you I had those little stumpy spider legs. In the forums, I talked to people, and on the Discord servers, on a lot of the troubleshooting ones, a lot of people were like, did you put the lubricant on that? And you are right. A couple people said, I never used that. And I will say this, I've been printing hundreds of models and I have never really used it. There is some question of whether or not the original FEP that's installed is lubricated or not. I don't know if that's true or not, but so we have a listener right now who is actually against it. And to be fair, I have printed hundreds of prints without it. So like, it is definitely possible not to do it, but it is something I've considered, especially since I did have those weird stump failures, strange things. So,
and this is absolutely by the numbers. Technically, this probably isn't required. I, however, confirmation bias, have had problems when I don't lubricate, and lubricating gives me happy, healthy prints. And so I stick by lubricating myself.
It's a feather.
But this is something that people do disagree on. Crazy mad scientist, as you said in chat, is one of those against lubricating the FEP. And hey, maybe this isn't for you, but for me, I like to lubricate my FEP, and I use the 3-in-1 PTFE lubricant. I don't know the company that makes this. 3-in-1. 3-in-1 is the company. Yeah, but the 3-in-1 PTFE lubricant. This is a lovely little lubricant that I put on my FEP layer, and then I use a lens cloth, like the same microfiber cloth I use to clean my glasses. I have one dedicated for this, to just like wipe it and just make sure that there's no puddles or moisture left, and just put a smooth layer across my print before I do my first print. And I only do this when I replace my FEP. I don't do it any
To my
other
understanding,
time.
yeah, you just do it. That, and then someone recommended that after you're changing brands of resin, maybe to give it a go once.
Don't know.
I would love Crazy Mad Scientists to say why they're against it, if there's a specific reason. If not, then obviously.
The reasons that I've heard against it is that it's really just the same material that the FEPs are made of to begin with, and they shouldn't need the extra lubricant, and that you're contaminating the resin by putting a new additive in there. I don't put so much in there that I think that that's a super big problem for me.
You basically put it on and then you wipe it off, right? Like you're just really trying to leave.
Yeah. You put it on and then you wipe it off. It's just, yeah, exactly. There shouldn't be any like actual excess moisture on the FEP when I pour my resin in there. And hey, some people do not subscribe to this. Uncle Jesse on YouTube is a strong proponent of it, but I hear others that aren't. So hey, maybe this is just snake oil. But it's snake oil that has worked for me for a very long time, and I will accept my confirmation bias and will continue to lubricate until there is proof that it is actually bad for me. Because if nothing else, it is peace of mind that does nothing to me.
After the fails I had with the spider legs and stuff, I did end up switching. I was just like, well, if I'm having problems, maybe I'll try it from resin. And I actually got like a old thing of Elegoo that I was just positive was like dead. Like it was like 8 or 9 months. Worked like a charm.
Really?
So I mean, at this point, I am starting to move into the bone rattling and chanting crowd of like, it's gonna work if it works for me, and I can do the best I can, take care of the machine and get it set up, but then after that sometimes there's just gonna be weird stuff. I think, I don't know. But don't leave it in your garage when it gets too cold. That was a problem for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And though refer to previous episodes about like printing in cold weather and stuff if you want to so do not make sure that you understand the heat. So one of the things that I also recommend that you lubricate, and is super required if you want your printer to continue to long last, is the Z-axis rails. Your printer is a machine. It needs to be taken care of regularly. And one of the things that will, over a few months time of printing, that will build up is the actual Z-axis screw that pulls the plate up and down will just start to, like, the oils in it will gunk up. There'll be contaminants. It'll just become grody and stop it up. And eventually it'll get so bad that it will cause the printer to try to raise the axis when it needs to, and it won't, or it won't be able to lower it, or it'll stall the engine out, or some absolutely horrible things that can happen to your printer if you do not take care of that. And the answer to this is just periodically. I do like about once a month is my regular scheduled maintenance for this. I will get a nice wire brush. Here's the thing: cover up your resin vat when you do this, because you don't want the flex of that getting into your resin and contaminating your resin.
Or just take it off.
Yeah, take it off. But I like to put a sheet down over top the resin vat, like a sheet of paper for this. And even if I take the resin vat off, I'll put a sheet of paper over the screen so I don't get any of this stuff on the screen.
Sure, you don't want the thing on the LCD.
I'll take a wire brush, and I'll just use the manual controls to make it go up and down, and I'll just like hold the wire brush there and like let it do the work, and just move the brush up and down, and while it spins, clean that stuff out, get a paper towel in there, throw some isopropyl on it, and like wash that off. This takes like 5 minutes total work, and the machine is doing all the work for you because you're just going to rotate that chain. And then when you're done, I take that same PTFE 3-in-1 lubricant and I lube up the rail, and I run it up and down a few times. It's doing great. Z-axis screw is good. And one of the most obvious like mystery failed prints is my printer's doing great, but all of a sudden it just looks like it stopped printing and sheared off the miniature at this point. That is usually a symptom of your Z-axis screw is stalling. And oh boy, the holy racket one makes. I didn't know to do this when I had my Mars, and when it got to the point where it was completely stopped up, and just to hear it just like this cranking, whining yell from the motors, and it was like, oh no, it's about to die.
Yeah, I heard like something like, I want to say the noise it made when a chunk of a mini had fallen under another one and it was trying to go down.
That'll do it.
That was a god awful noise.
Yeah.
Terrible. So it looks like Crazy Mad Scientist did circle back and says that it considers it a band-aid maybe, and that it's it will stop you from diagnosing the actual sticking problem, is the opinion. I think proper exposure time, lift speed, surface areas all relate to FEP sticking, but 1000% agrees with lubing your Z-axis for sure. So
all right, good to know. So that's the big important one that is one of the things that aren't super widely distributed in the hobby is, about once a month, clean your Z-axis screw and relube it. That needs to get the gunk out, make sure that it's running cleanly. You will thank yourself so much. It is so little work. You just need to remember to do it frequently.
I probably need to go do that like tomorrow or tonight.
Yeah. It's so easy. It's just and it's so much work to get it fixed when it has jammed completely up. Like when I had to fix that old Elegoo Mars of mine, and like it was like a whole half a day affair of like going up and down and cleaning in and cleaning out and relubing it and getting some WD in there. And then it's like, oh man, there's just so much work to get it to go once it was completely jammed up. Preventative maintenance, my friend. Preventative maintenance.
Message received.
Yeah. So one of the other things that you need to do when you're taking care of your 3D printer is to realize that the FEP is not the only consumable part on your printer.
Oh?
No. Eventually, your LCD will go bad. And it'll go bad a whole lot faster if you don't use a screen protector, or you forget to check your vat for particles and you shove like a bit of cured resin straight through the LCD screen. That's another thing that can happen to it. But just through the natural
personal
use
experience
of it,
there. What's that?
Huh?
Oh, okay.
No, none of that. I've avoided that fate, thank goodness. But I've seen plenty of Facebook pictures in the different support groups of people who have not avoided that fate and have ruined their 3D printers that way. It is not a fun sight to see, and you will usually know that it happened when the goop is like falling off the edges of the printer, and it's bad. That is super bad.
Yeah, once it gets to the side where it could possibly get cured by extraneous UV light through like the vents and stuff, that could get really, really bad.
I mean, in the worst case scenario, then like that's just a whole printer that needs to be chucked. But just through general use, the UV light is a harsh substance, or harsh light, and it will eat through and burn out those LCD screens eventually. And so just periodically do a screen test if you're having fails. Like the telltale sign that your FEP is about to, or not your FEP, but your LCD screen is about to die, is you'll start printing some minis and they'll have mysterious holes through them.
Holes?
What that,
like straight vertical holes?
Yeah, it's like somebody shoved a needle straight through the center of your mini, and what that means is there's some dead pixels that aren't changing when they should, and so they're blocking off the light permanently. And so what you need to do there is that's what the screen test function is for on your printer. You'll find that in the maintenance mode. Just periodically look at that and see if your printers. But when that happens, you got to replace the LCD screen, and that's like not super expensive purchase. It's for the smaller printers like the Mars and such. You're looking about $30 to replace that screen and get a new one in. So, your small Mars 3s and monos. And
It's a
for
bit
your
more than that.
Saturns, yeah, the Saturns, they were bad. Like back when we were talking before and getting this podcast started, they had gone up to about $200 a screen. They're back down to about $60 to $80 a screen now. So it's still an ouch, but it's not the humongous half of my printer's cost is replacing the screen that it used to be.
Right. It was so high when I needed to do it with my ME Cubic while I was waiting for them to tell me whether or not they were going to replace it under warranty, that it was just as well to just buy that Saturn. So that's what ended up happening.
Right. And the good news is if you take care of your FEP, you take care of your screen, you replace that on the regular, you lube up your Z-axis, you're going to have a printer that prints happily, continuously, and will not try to self-destruct. There are some other things to avoid. Is to make sure that you're leveling properly. And sometimes when your printer has a problem, it will forget its level, or it will think its level is some other ways, in which case it will try. I was Crystal Frazier, a game designer and friend. I've been helping her with her new 3D printer, and this was something that came up where the level got skipped, or this will happen if the motor skips or jams or it tries to print and there's a mini in the way. Lots of things can do this, where the printer thinks the plate is in the place it isn't, and then will proceed to try to ram that plate straight through your LCD screen when it tries to print something. You do not want that to happen, and it can and will break your printer. These things love to try to kill themselves. They really do love to try to kill themselves. I think I saw
a tweet from Crystal, something to the effect of, it's a machine you put money in to get sad or something.
Oh no. We fixed it. We fixed it. And she's since printed some really cool looking dragons with it. So I'm super happy. But what you need to do there is you basically need to take everything off your printer and just turn it off, let it sit without power for a little bit so it loses everything in memory, turn it back on again, and re-level it from scratch, as if it was brand new out of the box. So anytime you start to have problems or you hear that grinding noise, you need to do that again. If you ever hear grinding noises from your printer, it's a bad time. So you need to diagnose it, and this is one of the ways.
We're talking about leveling.
You need to basically re-level again.
I re-level it every time I change my resin tank.
Oh wow, that's more than I do. I've got my level dialed in, and until I see problems, I just assume it's good.
No, every time I move the tank, I'll do it.
Wow. Well, that's more responsible. That's definitely the more responsible way to go.
I've had stuff that's funny though. Okay, so here's a story in my bone rattling and hoping for the best, because I did that recently, did my whole level thing, everything, and I got distracted. I think I had to go answer a phone call or something. And I came back and I kicked off the print, came back, a beautiful print, everything's great. And I looked down and I realized the screws aren't tightened on the tank, and I hadn't actually tightened the full plate down either. So it was a loose plate and a not screwed in thing. Miracle that thing printed, but it was fine.
Oh my gosh. One of the mistakes that this isn't a maintenance thing, but one of the ways to keep your printer from exploding, it's something I have done twice, and it's hilarious each time, but one time was a big mess because I was stupid. Sometimes you forget to screw down the vat, and then you sit print, and then the printer will just take that vat and sail to space with it. And you'll have a whole vat filled with resin that the printer just pulls straight up into midair.
And did it drop?
Spend hours doing this with it.
Oh, so it was just adhered to your FEP and stayed?
Yeah, because I forgot to screw it down, and it just sort of just stayed onto the build plate from beginning to end.
I'm impressed that happened.
I know. And I pulled the lid off, ready to get my minis off, and I was like, oh, this is bad. And the first time it happened, I was dumb and I was trying to well, maybe if I siphon out a few of the resin before I touch it, and then it just dropped right onto the printer. Resin went everywhere. I got covered in resin. This was a bad day. I had to immediately clean everything up and ISO all over me, just wash this stuff off, go take a shower. It was a bad time. It took me a good half a day to clean up that mess. Don't do that. The correct answer is, with your gloves on, hold the bottom of the plate, unscrew the build plate, and pull the whole thing off.
That sounds smarter.
Yeah, that's much smarter than the stupid thing I did.
Do you know what caused it to adhere?
I forgot to screw the bat. I forgot to screw the
So
vat
were you
down.
doing like a lot of figs or something that had that much adhesion? Because like I
I
can't even
always
imagine
do
like
a
it.
lot of figs that do that. Like when I
I'll let
run
you
the
lecture
print,
me
most
about
of the time
overloading my
I have
plate.
got like 40 figures on the build plate.
See, I hit about 12 and then I get like nervous. But then again, also my figures usually have tentacles, which just have spears.
I mean, I'm printing a lot of like monstery things with fangs and claws. No
Claws
tentacles
and
though.
fangs. No tentacles and wings and
No. And also like
halos of fire.
I do like to do the build plate Tetris. Like I like looping swords into under armpits and anything I can do to get more models on there.
I can get pretty close as long as I'm like side by side, but as soon as I try to go anything vertical, I inevitably screw things up. Like once I did the whole, I'm going to just see if I can stack a whole nother level on top of it. That was disastrous.
Oh no. Like I don't recommend doing it. There's a reason that Uncle Jesse did a video making fun of it, which was funny after our episode seeing him do that video. I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a wasteful way to do it though, like with that extra build plate floor thing. But I don't recommend doing it. It's just a stunt I've done before, especially on smaller Mars printers. I'm like, I could go to sleep and I'll have twice as many lizard men tomorrow.
But we know the truth is if you go to sleep with even a full tray, you come back and you still have more than you can paint the next day.
You really do. Well, I am besides my zombies that I'm wanting to print, those Highland miniature zombies, I'm wanting to print those blood hunt bats. Like I want those giant bats. That's probably what, like, if I wasn't doing this podcast tonight, I would be printing those bats tonight.
I probably lean a little bit more towards Arc Villains, big bats myself, but
those bats are really good, but they're almost too big for me. I need large size bats, not huge
looking for more like
bats.
a troop bat.
I need one huge size bat though. I really do need. Actually, I need a big old gargantuan sized bat if I can get it. I want to find a big old gargantuan zombie bat, but I haven't seen one online yet that I'm happy with.
One more maintenance thing I will say that's kind of related to everything we've been talking about that I have a problem with that you don't probably have a problem with is I change my resin colors a lot. And if you do that, you do need to keep track of how old they're getting because you will eventually start to get colors that like, yeah, it's cool that you had that golden translucent whatever that you really liked. But if you don't use it in a few months, then you're starting to drastically increase your chance of fails. And sometimes even the resin, if it's not cured soon enough, can get weird ripples in it and other stuff that like might look cool accidentally, but it's certainly not going to be something reliable or something you want. So I would definitely say keep some sort of schema for rotating it out and throwing it away or properly disposing of it in your principality or location or whatever.
If you are printing frequently with multiple types of resin, this is definitely a reason to buy the extra build vats because they come with lids so that you can just lid them up and just store that vat with the resin in it and not have to worry about. So like just get a couple for if you have like, I very frequently print with my greens but I want to sometimes print with translucent blue. You can have a build vat that you just use for translucent blue and a build vat that you just use for greens, and you don't have to worry about cleaning it out between prints that way.
I will say that if you leave it in there too long, which I have done, you can still get some weird settling. Yeah. And so I would definitely check it out. Even if you're going to try to like level mix it with your build plate or something, just be careful because you can still like get this little like funk at the bottom. And what I've noticed is that particular stuff is super concentrated. So when you cure it, that will cause your FEP to stick like really bad.
So if it's been more than a week since I printed with the stuff that sit in my bin, is I will grab one of my spats, the plastic ones, not the metal ones, so not the Sharpie ones.
So you don't rip a hole in your FAP yourself,
right? So I'll get one of my plastic spats that I buy off Amazon for like a dozen for $7. It's the same ones that come with the printers. And I use that, and I just move it all the way through, making sure I'm scraping the bottom, but not much. And then I back and forth, and that's how I'll mix that up. I won't trust the butter churn effect with the build plate. I need to manually get in there and stir. And if I'm really concerned with it and it doesn't look like it's cleaned up just by doing that for a few minutes, I'll pour the whole thing back in the bottle and then shake.
Yeah. Which I would definitely recommend, and probably even cleaning function, fry that bottom layer because it's settled. So
all right. So that's everything I can think about maintaining your printer and keeping it from trying to explode and kill itself. Can you think of anything else?
No. Got to get those printers ready for next week, though.
Yeah, because we have an exciting episode coming up next week. Titan Forge will be coming on to do an interview on the podcast, and we are super pumped and
so hyped. And what a good set.
Yeah, this is a good set to have them on the show to talk about. So if you've not seen, their next month's set is going to be the Red Leaf Elves, which is their take on Wood Elves. The modular Wood Elves look awesome. They have modular centaurs that are coming with it. They're like, these are the barefoot. We have wood armor. Wood Elves, everything looks natural, and then the hero models are amazing. They've got this gigantic forest dragon with a optional elf rider that is like all feathers and a canine face, and then like antlers coming off of it, and it's this big long snake boy, and the wings are optional, so you can print it with the wings, or it can just be this long serpentine type dragon that I'm just super in. I do not have a need for this model, because I already have a forest dragon model that I love, which is coincidentally one they made several months ago for the Nature Nights.
Gotcha.
But I need to print this. I need to paint this, if nothing, for just be a display model. And the rest of the models are also super great. There's this wood elf hunter woman with their dog, and like one of the things that I like about this one is
that is a wolf.
Yes, it is a wolf. But they have posed her so that her hand is actually inside the fur instead of just on top of the fur. And that was a super great touch. I love the set, and they are going to be on the show next week to talk about everything they do. We're going to be talking about them about blood fields. We're going to be talking about their roles in 3D printing and their Patreon. This is one of the few companies that existed outside of being a 3D print. Titan Forge has been around printing minis for a while, not for 3D printed, just making some of the best high quality minis on the market. For a long time, they have been some of my favorite miniature Patreons for sure, both this and Cyberforge, which I'm loving Cyberforge. And next month on Cyberforge, they're doing the King of Cyberfist tournament. So it's a whole bunch of martial artists with like robot parts.
Really wish I would have realized how affordable it was, because for some reason I didn't like. I did the sample month and then like didn't keep it up, but it's like $7, right? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, well, $6 if you got in early.
Yeah. $7 for us plebes.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, and their loyalty reward. They announced the loyalty reward, which is this gigantic crystal dragon that's just awesome looking.
That is cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to be looking for that. So they're going to be on the show next week. We've been arranging that since I talked with them at PAX Unplugged. So we're going to be really excited to get that up. Some other things that we want to shout out to. You had a Kickstarter that caught your eye, right?
Right. If anybody knows my background with war gaming and specifically skirmish gaming, I loved Necromunda back in the day. Like loved it. And so I saw this Kickstarter from, I think it's Popla. I can't say it. Popov Laboratory.
Yeah,
and it's listed as Hive City map, and I think, okay, cool, a big battle map for the Hive City, but no, I was looking at it wrong. It turns out it is actually a campaign map, but I think this is really cool, especially right now with a lot of people kind of embracing hex crawls and things. This is actually a way to kind of track a campaign or a physical location that's like a whole undercity, and you can create a physical representation of it. And I think that is a fascinating idea. And their tiles are these little hex tiles, and they have a little like lock and key, kind of like an open lock, but it's its own thing, I think. But can create this massive stacked city 3D, you know, as much as like, you know, deep arcology, or if you've seen like Arcane, it's kind of like the Undercity in Arcane maybe. But yeah, this really, really cool hex grid 3D representation of your campaign for one of these, you know, kind of underworld games like Necromunda or Grim Dark Future Fight. What's it called? The skirmish one. Firefight.
Yeah.
So if you're doing an extended campaign rule where like you're claiming territory and things like that, there's little markers for it, and it just, I think it's a really cool like way to visually represent a long form skirmish campaign, and I'd never really quite seen stuff like it. I've seen maybe one Hex Fantasy one, maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because the Hexton Hills is what this reminds me of, and I pledged in for this for the same reason. They are not the same people. That's the first thing I checked. Was like, oh, did they do a sci-fi set? No, it's a different crew, but same idea where you just 3D print these like very awesome like 3D textured hex tiles that link together for keeping track of campaigns, your campaign map and stuff, because that looks a whole lot better than a poster board on the wall.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you're doing all those like unlocking hexes, I played one. Scott Gladstein from Little Red Goblin did a hex crawl game, and it was really cool to kind of unlock those areas and kind of fill in the map. And I think that would be a really rewarding way to do it with that kind of 3D physical representation. Either genre would be cool.
All right. Well, if you want to further support the show, one of the best ways you can do so is giving us a like or a 5-star review over on iTunes, or a like or a heart wherever you've watched this. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can give us a like on Facebook or Twitter, and just like share the episodes, like get the word out that we're doing this podcast, and hopefully we can get some more eyes on this. We've got a fantastic response from all of you all, and we would love to keep growing the audience, growing the community, and also doing some more episodes like this, getting some more people in here to interview with us. I'm having a fantastic time. If you want to follow more of what we're doing, you can go over to the printyourgames.com website, where you'll find links to all of our socials, all the places that you can support us. And again, we very much thank all of you all for doing that, as well as our brand new Discord server if you want to hang out there and chat with me and Kristen about things in nerdy game stuff. So until next time, keep that resin flowing and make sure your printer does not explode on you. And remember to print your games. Bye, y'all.
See you.